Hello, welcome to a special edition of the Nuvie Club podcast, Secret Sauce series. I'm joined here by Kwame Kwakwa, and he is our guest today, a filmmaker starting up in New York, and we've had a pleasure of meeting him. How you doing, Kwame?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So tell us what's your favorite thing to do in real life when you're not behind a camera?
In real life, well, right now, as evidenced by kind of one of my recent projects, I do Bhangra, which is the Punjabi folk dance, and I've kind of been doing it since college. And we travel to competitions and compete against other teams, and it's just a fun, physical activity for me. And apart from that, I don't know. I play video games a lot too.
Consumer of entertainment, dancer. That's how you have to stay fit while you're hand controls, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So where are you based right now, and what's one thing that you love to do in the city?
Right now, I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. And honestly, one thing that I really like to do is, New York is a great place if you're a lover of just like parks and walking around. And, it's a nice break from, especially when you're working in like a filmmaking space and you're doing a lot of editing in your room. You kind of have to, take some time to actually, get outside, use your feet a little bit. So I like exploring kind of the different parks in the city.
That's great. You know what? One thing we did last summer was the tip to tip walk from the northern tip of Inwood all the way down to Battery Park City. Have you ever done something like that?
I haven't done it yet, but I have some friends who I'm like we should do it because it sounds like a nice way to spend a Saturday.
How long have you been in the city for?
I've been here since the beginning of 2023, so almost getting to 3 years now.
3 years. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure another couple of years you'll feel a lot more aware of a lot of the different places all across the different neighborhoods, and you'll feel like you have your New York legs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how did you first find your way into documentary and narrative work? How did you become kind of inspired to do this?
Yeah, so I think I was in college studying computer science, and it came to a point where I just really wanted to switch majors. So I wanted to go into film production. I'd had experience, doing like short videos and also just as a camera operator. I used to help on sports broadcasts in college, and doing narrative film is one thing, but it's always such a big process. You kind of have to organize everything. You have to get actors, you have to get crew. But documentary, I feel like, comes easily to me because you can kind of just pick it up and do it whenever you feel like it. You don't need to rely on anyone else. You just take your camera and find what you're doing, and then you just go out and do it. So that's just kind of how I found my way into doing a lot of doc stuff.
And it kind of helps that you're part of this dance community as well, and there's something there that you want to capture while you're participating with these dancers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, people say like it's great to have, unique life experiences that you can draw from. So it's like I have that. And it's also the people who are in these projects are very often people I know personally. So it makes it very easy to just ask them like, hey, can I do a project with you? And then you just go from there.
So Bollywood dance, tell me, how did you get into that? Because that's such a left turn, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, it's like because everyone asks me that because I was never a dancer before, but it was really, one of my roommates in college convinced me to go to the tryouts for this team. I didn't want to go because that was the first day of field hockey practice for the field hockey club, and I wanted to do that instead. And I decided I'll go there for half of the tryouts and just see how it goes. And I kind of accidentally got on the team, and since then it's just become a bigger and bigger part of my life.
Wow. So either you were really good or they didn't have really good.
Let's just say the bar was low, but I cleared it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'm sure that your kind of experience in film, your training as a camera operator at ESPN, and now getting into doc work kind of trains you with a specific eye when you're working, rehearsing with these other dancers. So what would you say are some of the things that you're paying attention to now that you would say other camera operators would potentially miss?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been so interesting to me about doing documentary on this kind of dance is really understanding the feeling of the movement when you're in it, and kind of capturing how fast it can be, how kind of still it can be sometimes. And that's a big part of camera operating. The operator will tell you that understanding motion and movement is a really big part of whatever genre you're doing. So I felt like one thing that I could bring that was unique to to kind of this project that I guess only I could show is really just the feeling of how fast it can be sometimes, how energetic it can be sometimes, and kind of conveying that feeling of adrenaline through the project.
And so that's amazing. How did it feel to have this film that you work on screen in New York after graduating?
I mean, it was great. It's the first festival that I've shown since I graduated college. And my dad, because my parents live outside the country, my dad actually surprised me and he came into the city to watch me present it. And so it just feels like for the few years that I've been in the city, it's been an uphill battle as it is for anyone who's getting into film and TV, especially right now. So it does feel like at least, here's a milestone, here's something I can be proud of, and here's something I can show to other people and say, this is kind of my shining projects that I can present. So
That's awesome.
it's nice to have, something that I can like put on as like a badge of honor now.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So, you're telling me a little bit about what it feels like to kind of capture this movement, how proud you feel to have your work out there. What would you say was encapsulated in the film as your voice?
I feel like, when I was going into the project, I didn't want it to just be as simple as, what is bunker and have it be like an explainer of that aspect of it. Because, the people who do it, which is the people who I was kind of doing it for, they already know all that. But I wanted it to be an answer to the question that I feel like all of us get and answer each other who are in the dance community, which is like, why are you still doing this, right? Because most of us aren't like earning money from it. It's purely a hobby. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of effort, and everyone's getting injured all the time, which is not ideal. But I feel like when I showed this to my parents, I kind of really had a good answer for like when they ask me, why are you still doing this? Why is this the thing that you choose to do?
Well, yeah, I guess if you're putting your body on the line, it really has to mean something a lot to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you say has been kind of the hardest part about turning your skills into like paid and sustainable work?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part and which is overall it's something that I've still been working on is that I kind of came into the city from a place that wasn't so like I went to Cornell, they don't really have an established film school program. So coming into the city, I didn't really have as many industry connections as I wanted to. I didn't have as good of a reel as I wanted to. So you're kind of starting on the back foot in that sense. And realistically, you have to just keep doing work, whether it's paid or unpaid. But it's often hard to like strike a balance between like doing things for free all the time or like kind of holding out and like reserving your time until someone calls you up and offers you a paid gig because that doesn't just happen by chance. So it's really just in trying to strike a balance between holding out for paid gigs, doing unpaid gigs, and also doing a lot of networking. Because I, by nature, am more of an introverted person, but you do kind of have to learn to just go to events and go up to people, introduce yourself, say your name, and say why we should keep talking or work together someday.
I love that. I think that's tremendous advice. People, especially now in the age of AI, people are sending their resumes through AI. The value of human to human interaction is more important than ever. And I'm curious what kind of marketing or outreach has actually helped lead to some of these opportunities for you so far. The festival experiences, some of the paid work.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just like a lot of it comes from just maximizing in volume in like sending your name and your resume out to the right places. But I find that, one thing that I underestimated the value of initially was Facebook groups, because that's where a lot of the entry level gigs are going. And, I'm personally not a huge fan of Facebook, so I kind of don't really like to use it too much. But you have to get on the Facebook groups when it comes to like film gigs and that kind of thing. Recently I've been using threads to just find a lot of like niche and like lower key people who are looking for people to fill in positions, and really just like exploring every avenue in terms of like all the different platforms that you can kind of get yourself out there.
What about in person?
In person, yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of being in New York is that there's such a bustling like in-person film scene where like there's people who are doing it professionally, but also people who are just looking to meet other filmmakers. So like even just one thing that I did was you just Google like filmmaker meetups, and like there'll be a bunch of them that show up on Facebook and on like Eventbrite and on like I think there's one that's called like meetup.com. But like just kind of trying to like find events to go to every week that that can just, even if it doesn't lead to paid work, you can at least build up that community of people that are like following your Instagram, so that if it comes up that they need someone, then they can just shoot a DM, or if they put something up on their story, you can shoot them a DM saying like, "Hey, I can fill in this position for you."
That's excellent advice. Continuing to find ways to expand that network and build out your community is really important. I echo that as well. So, for someone just starting out in doc or narrative camera work, what's one choice that you've made that you would absolutely repeat?
One choice that I've made, I think, well, I guess I'll go with one that's more on the technical side. But when I came to the city, I was using a Blackmagic Pocket 4K, which I still have, which is like a fantastic camera, which I love. But choose it. I also have more recently bought a Sony FS7, and in some senses it was a downgrade. But the reality is there are so many just like quality of life features outside of like image quality that help help make it easier to be like a one-man band. So just like making choices in terms of gear that help you be more efficient when you're working by yourself as well as working with others is very useful, instead of having stuff that you need a whole like crew to operate.
That's great advice. Yeah, a modular setup, especially as a one man band, is a great resource, a great tool. And what's one thing that you would never do the same way again?
Hmm. One thing that I would never do the same way again, I think it would be just like, waiting too long to get things done. I feel like, again, I mentioned, having to strike the balance between holding out for paid work and doing unpaid work. And I feel like I I was way too conservative on like how much unpaid work I should be doing. So like a lot of the time I felt like no, I should keep my schedule free, because like just in case someone calls me and like asks me to PA on a set or something. And then I ended up kind of having not much structure in my days. So I feel like even if you're working or not, I feel like having a structure around your days, whether it just comes to like setting time in your day for networking, setting time in your day for working on like individual projects, and setting time in your day on just like going out and just like being a normal person and not just staying in your room all the time. I feel like those things are kind of part of the whole setting a balance between doing nothing and doing something.
That's great. That's great advice as well too. Definitely have a regimen. Be intentional with your time and don't squander it. Yes. So we've been talking about kind of your secret sauce and kind of the path that has led you here. One of the things we'd love to know from you is there a short film on Nukhu that you've seen that you want to point people to?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a few of the shorts on Nuku, and one that really stood out to me was Starving by Nishan Bujel. And I think the thing that stood out to me there was that, I mean, one, again, I mentioned like camera movement. I feel like the way it was shot and the way it was framed was it felt so much a part of the story of just like this starving kid who's like, he can barely see just because of how hungry he is. But it was just so impressive that because it's raining through a lot of it, and to my eye, it looks like real rain. So I can only imagine like the kind of conditions they had to shoot around to just get that done, and that really says a lot. I feel like about how dedicated the filmmakers are to getting that story out there, and it's a good story.
I completely agree. Starving is an excellent film. Visceral, not a lot of production resources behind it, but such evocative storytelling. I completely agree, Kwame.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing, for spending the time with us here for the Secret Sauce series. Is there anything that you would like to share with our community before we wrap up? Your social handles, ways to follow your work so they can collaborate.
Yeah, I mean, so my main handle for my video work is Kwakwacine. That's KWAKWACINE, and that's where I put most of my video stuff. I have a few BTS shots of me as like I've been learning to be a steady cam operator. So if anyone's looking for one of those, hit me up. But yeah, I mean that's my main work page.
Excellent. So follow Kwame on Instagram. We'll have his handle in the caption. Kwame, thank you so much for joining us for the Secret Sauce series. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and we look forward to following your work.
Thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you.